For the majority of people, we can't. And you know, the Amish may like to, but someone's got to go out and fight the battles for this country to defend the way of life. Use modern equipment, modern technology, fly the airplanes and so on, develop the industry. You know, we all can't ride around in horse and buggies, or we might like to. We'll soon be overrun by someone else. So, you know, we protect them, really. Give them protection. We're willing to, that's fine. But, you know, not everyone can do that. In Israel, the same thing. Everyone can't be sitting worshiping at the wall. If everyone's worshiping at the wall, they'll soon be all slaughtered. You know, someone's got to go out and do the dirty work. You say, well, oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah, well, you know, let's be honest. All these people in the ivory towers and other things that they like to inhabit, they live at the leave of others who have to go out and do the dirty work, who defend them and allow them to sit in the ivory tower. Come on. And most of us are willing to do that, as long as it doesn't get overburdensome. In Israel, it's a huge battle going on this issue of how burdensome is it that the religious groups can get exempt from the army, for instance, in order to study the Torah in yeshivas. That really annoys the other population. There are a lot of religious people who do fight in the army, Orthodox people with kippahs and stuff like that. But there's Hasidic groups who don't. You know, and others like that. Well, I can assure you that does not make them very popular in the general population. These people have to go out and risk their lives, and they don't. You know, it just doesn't go down. You see. So, you know, we can say we'd like to live in a 3rd millennium BC manner and not change anything. But if we all did that, we would be overwhelmed by people who didn't. And we can't do that. Not all of us, anyway. So again, he's recognizing that. I guess this is not Geiger here. This is still Jacobson or his associates. But you see, they are throwing out right away the national characteristics. Why? The same as Mendelssohn's people are doing in the conversion in Marx's family. And, you know, Disraeli's father converted him too. And Heine's father, Heine himself rather, Hitler wouldn't allow Heine to be read anymore in Germany, even though he was their greatest lyric poet. And he's a really interesting person, Heinrich Heine. That's also a subject that's well worth research if you're interested in someone like that. He's a really interesting person. So, you know, they are throwing away the national characteristics. Now, the second part, I think everyone can agree, or at least most people of goodwill can agree. We have to do some upgrading if we're going to not lose our children, if nothing else. So when they adopted, you know, choirs, organs, pews, I think not many people would object to mixing men and women, even though Orthodox Judaism still does not mix men and women in the synagogues. I'm not sure whether it's good or bad to do it. I'm not sure what aspects of Judaism should or shouldn't be returned. I am not the arbiter of these things. I couldn't possibly tell anyone what you should retain. Because I have to be honest, if you want personally what I feel to be myself to be a secular Jew. And I'll do my religious expression in my own way, whether it is looking at herons or some other beauty, etc. But I'm not going to abandon the tradition of the people who struggled so hard to bring it down to this period. I don't feel I have the right to do that. But I'm not necessarily going to, you know, express any of it myself personally, because I'm not sure what is an elemental form and what I'll join in solidarity with people if they want. I'm not against it. But I don't know what is the right or wrong thing to keep, what's intrinsic or what isn't. So I think we can agree with him that something has to be done, and what they want to do is to do it in a somewhat scientific manner. But you see, the first thing he started out with wasn't done scientifically. He didn't study what the effects of throwing out the prayer for the return to Zion would be on the morale and spirituality and psyche of the people. He just said, no, we don't want that anymore. You know, I don't think that that is done in a particularly scientific manner. So finally, the conclusion is, in this particular one, we who are deeply committed, see, he says I suppose we should say, this other form of Judaism maintains that Judaism test is expressed by forms which originated in a time which is forever past, which will never return. We are deeply committed to the sacred content of our religion, can we hope to sustain its inherited form, or even less can we hope to hand it to our descendants. Thus placed between the graves of our fathers and cradles of our children, we are stirred by the trumpet sound of our time, zeitgeist. It calls us to be the last of the great, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now that's a declaration of Reformed Judaism. Let's look at the introduction of the Berlin Prayer Book that is given here. And then we'll look at Abraham Geiger's introduction to his, this is already the mid-19th century. This is already 1848. Is it all right we look at this stuff? Do you mind? To page 52. To start with, this is a revised version of an earlier prayer book that had already been revised from traditional formats. The way and manner in which the chosenness and priestly vocation of Israel were expressed in our public prayers until now seem to require a thorough reform. See the reform? And this is, we have to reform the particularness, national characteristics. This idea of chosenness is really outdated. And now I don't know if it is or it isn't. I'm just saying this is what they're saying. And which would be adequate to our religious convictions now, the spirit of this time, 1850. The chosenness of Israel as a holy priest people and as God's own possession appears in our holy scriptures, a firmly established historic fact. I don't know about that, point of view, I would say. But it's really only a subjective fact, something, in the religious consciousness. Maybe they could have thought of them, paraphrasing here, themselves as God's chosen, perhaps. Many Jews now say, yeah, chosen for suffering. I don't think most Jews I think most Jews are pretty uncomfortable with that chosen idea, but, I think they were using it more poetically back in the original times. I don't think they thought, oh, we're chosen, and so on, everybody's great here. I don't think they had an idea that everyone was great here. They just said that there's a vocation that we